Well, once again, Judge Netburn, who is presiding over the discovery hearings in the Ripple versus the SEC lawsuit case, has once again ruled, and it favors Ripple. And some people have already been reporting on this, but I'm going to tell you how big this ruling actually is. Because I think this could be one of the most important rulings, other than the final ruling, that could actually be throughout the course of this case. So I'm going to get into that in this video. Also, some news about the SEC closed door meeting that was supposed to happen yesterday at 2 p.m. That meeting was moved, so I'll get into some details about that, when it's actually going to happen. And just yesterday, Gary Gensler, head of the SEC, and Janet Yellen, the Treasury Secretary, both spoke about cryptocurrencies and their views on regulation of the crypto space could actually look like. So we're going to talk about that in this video. Hey everybody, my name is Randy and welcome back to the Late Night Grind. In this channel, I'm covering the SEC versus Ripple case, along with other cryptocurrency news, investment markets, personal finance, and stimulus check updates. So if any of those topics interest you and you're new to the channel, go ahead and click that subscribe button, and don't forget to tap the bell notification icon. That way YouTube will notify you when I release a new video. And I do that when there are new developments, and right now there are a lot of new developments. And also, if you're feeling really generous, I'd really appreciate it if you just click the thumbs up button. It really helps out with a new YouTube channel like this, and it tells YouTube to show this video to other new audiences. So if you do that, I'd greatly appreciate it. All right, guys, well, let's get right into it. Okay, so the SEC meeting that was scheduled for yesterday was in fact canceled. It was supposed to happen yesterday, then they moved it to today, which is Friday. Then that meeting was canceled. They have now scheduled it for Tuesday the 13th. Now, some of the speculation was that the SEC wants to now include the two new lawyers that they are bringing in from Chicago to actually work on the Ripple, the SEC versus Ripple case. Kind of the speculation is that maybe they want to include those two in the meeting and get them acclimated and get them up to speed before they join the meeting to actually talk about the Ripple case. Now, that's just a speculation. I've seen that on a couple other videos and some Twitter feeds, but that would absolutely make sense. It's a high-profile case that the SEC is involved with, so it might only make sense that they would include somebody who may or may not be taking over the reins of that case. However, one thing that did happen yesterday was Janet Yellen, the Treasury Secretary, and Gary Gensler, the new head of the SEC, were both on a live stream that was done. I actually watched some of it. Basically, they were given their thoughts, some questions by some senators and House of Representatives regarding different things revolving around financial systems, regulations, things like that. And I pulled out some really interesting pointers. Janet Yellen, she doesn't seem to be anti-crypto, but she doesn't necessarily seem to be pro-crypto. But she knows that this space is growing. But one of the things that she mentioned kind of had me concerned, because she mentioned the fact that, at least in her view, the crypto space and Bitcoin is used for illegal activity, illicit transactions, those kind of things. And that just doesn't make sense anymore. That was a talking point back in 2011. It's now 2021. This is a full-blown financial and tech sector now. So in my view, the more they use that talking point, or the more they talk about that in terms of it being used for just shady activity, it just makes them look bad, because it makes them look out of touch, out of reality, and like they have a decade-old information. So Gary Gensler, when he spoke, it seemed a little more promising. It seemed to be a little more up-to-date than what Janet Yellen was saying, which makes sense because he's much more better versed in the crypto space. But basically what he was saying was he was being asked questions from different senators and House of Representatives and answering them, and you could tell based on the video he was clearly reading from his notes or from a script. So whether or not the whole thing was prepared, I don't know, could have been. But nonetheless, what was interesting was that was absent from his talking points was regulating the actual cryptocurrencies. He didn't get into that. It seemed to be his view would be more of a light touch, just create a framework that those technology systems and companies and currencies could work within. However, he did mention that exchanges could absolutely be the place where regulation could most benefit from regulations, from rules, to actually protect investors. So that makes sense, right? Why, instead of actually creating a framework of regulation around specific cryptocurrencies, because the dynamics of them are constantly changing and constantly evolving, whereas an exchange was where people actually go to buy the cryptocurrencies or invest in them, forcing them to abide by certain rules and regulations, it seems to be his way of going about regulation. So to me, it seems to be like a little bit of a lighter touch way of going about it, but a smarter way of going about it. He's obviously much more better versed at this than Janet Yellen. So it was interesting to see those words. However, this is coming off the news that just yesterday, it was announced that the IRS is now going after Kraken users. And that is, they're going after anybody that has more than $20,000 worth of transactions through the Kraken exchange. They're actually going after their personal information. Now, this is the IRS, so the IRS is clearly going after tax revenues here. But I just thought that was an interesting announcement where Gary Gensler specifically talked about regulating the exchanges, and on the same day the IRS is going after an exchange for everybody that does large transactions and, you know, seeing what they may or may not owe in taxes. Now here we go. We're going to talk about the ruling that Judge Netburn just gave over the discovery hearing that she's presiding over for the SEC versus Ripple. What happened was a couple of weeks ago, Judge Netburn ruled that Ripple does get to see all the documents and communications that the SEC has had regarding Bitcoin, Ethereum, and XRP is discoverable. And she mentioned that it's basically any communications or documentation that the SEC's had with outside agencies is relevant to the case because they used some of those communications to determine the outcome of Bitcoin and Ethereum and whether or not they're a security or a currency, and same with XRP. And since XRP is now essentially on the chopping block, they want to know how the SEC and how those other agencies actually came to the conclusion that Bitcoin and Ethereum were in fact a currency. This is where it gets really interesting from my standpoint. Because she made that ruling, the SEC came back and basically gave a couple of arguments. The SEC said, no, well, we don't have to produce those documents, and here's why. Because publicly disclosing some of these documents will basically have people lose trust in the SEC, and also it'll also kind of hinder our ability to actually litigate and create regulation in the future. Judge Netburn saw those arguments and she just said, nope, you have to produce them because these are relevant to the case at hand. They are now ordered to produce those documents. Now here's where it gets really interesting. In the ruling, it specifically mentioned internal communications, meaning SEC to SEC staff, email communications, informal communications, things like that, don't need to be discoverable, don't need to be disclosed. But any documentation, reports, final reports, position papers, any internal working groups, anything that was discussed with intra-agency communications is now discoverable and must be produced. And so what is intra-agency communications? Well, this is what it means. Basically, all the position papers, all the reports, everything that was discussed with other financial regulatory agencies when the United States government needs to be discoverable. Here's what we're going to be seeing: the communications between the SEC and these agencies about Bitcoin and Ethereum and XRP. The Commodities Future Trading Commission, which is the CFTC, the Federal Deposit and Insurance Commission, the FDIC, the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, which is the OCC, and the Global Financial Innovation Network, GFIC. Any and all documentations, presentations, reports, everything with all those agencies and the SEC, the court will now be able to see. That is huge. That is absolutely a win for Ripple in my mind, and it's one of the other reasons that now outside attorneys are now starting to say the SEC just needs to drop this case. They're losing their leverage left and right, and now they have to start disclosing all of these internal documentation as well as intra-agency documentation. So we're actually going to get a full view of how the United States financial and regulatory sectors and agencies have viewed Bitcoin and Ethereum. Like I said, in my opinion, this could be the biggest ruling in the entire case other than the final ruling if it actually gets there. XRP is now trading at about $1.62. It's kind of been fluctuating around there for a while now. But that's some interesting news, so keep an eye on it. And like I said, if you're new to this channel, please subscribe. Anytime big developments like this come out, I'm going to make a video about it, as well as other news in the cryptocurrency space. So go ahead, click the subscribe button and join the Late Night Grind community. If you want to know what some of the other members of this community are thinking, you can either read the comments below, or you can actually click on the community tab on this channel, and there I have a whole bunch of polls that I've been doing, well, for several months now. All right, thanks for watching, guys. I'd really appreciate a big thumbs up, and I'll see you guys on the next video.